What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another podcast. My name is Lucas. I'm here with my partner Brendan, Thomas, and we have a special guest in the building.
Yay. I'd like you to welcome Sean Daley. Sean Daley in the house.
Daily deals.
Daily deals.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, bro.
Yeah,
for sure.
super excited.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Cool, awesome. So, Sean, I know you're a real estate investor because that's how we met you,
Yeah.
right? So we met you at a couple events, but how did you even get into real estate? Like, what's your background?
Background's in hospitality, bars, restaurants, that kind of a thing. But I kind of got into it last year. I was thinking of changing, careers, right? I was kind of burnt out from everything that was going on. So I took a year to myself. And it was great. I kind of just got healthy. And during that time, I was just volunteering my time with a buddy he was flipping a couple condos here in San Diego. And while I was over there, in the background, he always had bigger pockets on and different things. So I started getting into it. And then I started realizing oh yeah, I like this. And I heard about Pace Morby, just different things like that. So I was like, oh, what should I do in real estate? Should I get my license? Should I not? What should I do? And then finally, I just pulled the trigger one day and just joined the course and joined Sub 2. And it was great. Actually, I lied. I take that back. It wasn't great. I joined the week I joined the week of Thanksgiving. And during the week of Thanksgiving, they shut down all of the Zooms. So here I am stoked to get in there and see all these there's so many Zooms to jump onto normally. And it was just all right, guys, we'll be back next week after the holidays are over. And I'm day one, no way, this is unreal. So I had nothing to do but just go through the course and just learn it. So I just cranked it out over the week. And then, it was that's kind of how I got started.
It's funny because I think for most people, the first step, it's always oh yeah, I'm gonna go get my real estate license, right? I thought the same thing, and then after 3 weeks in studying, and I'm nope.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Seems like that's the natural path, right? Because it's that's what everybody says. Oh, you're getting into real estate? How long are you gonna be until you're an agent? And it's that's the default way to go. So it's it seems like people are just programmed to go that route.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna get into real estate. I have to be an agent.
Yeah.
Turns out it's not true.
Not true at all, and that's a common misconception, right? That's kind of what I was feeling too. But then when I was looking about the job itself, I was trying to make a change from hospitality. COVID really just sucked when you're working being a police officer at a restaurant. That's just not fun at all. So I was just burnt out and wanted to look at something different. And when it comes down to being a realtor, you're working on other people's time. You're still just trying to do that, and you're not in my opinion, I was just thinking this isn't really what I want to be doing. Because I'm still gonna be running around town trying to do stuff, and it's just how am I supposed to have a work-life balance? And what can I do to do this? And I just looked at this other option as being a little bit better and seeing what I could do. And honestly, just looking back, it hasn't even been a year yet, right? It was last Thanksgiving, so we're not even a year in, and just looking back at all that I've learned, it's just crazy. And I'm so happy that I did not go the realtor route because I would just be pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And you can only do one thing. And right now, nobody's seems to be wanting to sell their homes because of the interest rates, and all the realtors I know are just doing cold calling. And so oh, it's not much different, but I'm actually being able to do this on a bigger, higher scale and wholesale houses, so it's much different. So
how's your work balance though compared to hospitality right now?
Well, compared to hospitality, I mean, it was, my phone would never go off when I was there. So if a fire alarm was going off in the middle of the night, that call goes to me, right? If something were to happen, it goes to me. So it's just I was always putting out fires, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a big change, right? And then, there's other aspects to it. When you're in hospitality, there's a lot of drinking and that kind of stuff. And so you just kind of get I was a little overweight, a lot of things like that. So it was just super unhealthy. And I was this is just not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good pivot, man. Like I totally just reframed everything that I've got going on, and really tried to put some goals up ahead of me, to be able to do what I want to be doing. And like, it's one of those things where you see your own potential and you're like, why am I not doing this? Why I can see myself doing so much more, but I'm capped, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you guys still got a boss to report to, right? Like you have an owner that you got to talk to, and they're the ones that are, you're seeing that bottom line, they're making all this money and you're capped, So it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? Because I'm not doing it this way, like it just wasn't working for me.
So then, was there like a specific situation where it's like, I can't do this anymore, or was it just like accumulation of just over time? You're like, I just don't want to do this, and then the next day it was like, kept festering at you.
I still get hit up for jobs. Like, it's one of those things, but I don't want that as a fallback plan. Like, I made up my mind. Like, I'm just not going to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like, there has been some serious struggles, like getting started in real estate and wholesaling and learning creative, just a whole learning process. It's like, you want to make sure when you get started down this road that you have like a nest egg, because you're not, well, I'm not going to say you're not ever, but it's typical that some people don't get their first deal within the first couple months, right? So you want to be able to make sure that if you're needing something right away and you're not part of a team, you're just trying to do something on your own, it's going to take you longer. So for me, I joined a team pretty much right away within the first month, and it was with a couple like mastermind students, and I basically got a like one-on-one training to be able to go and do all these other creative deals from people that have gone to the masterminds and learned everything, and now they're teaching it to me. So it just, my personal growth, learning like creative finance, was like a rocket ship, and it just kind of took off. So yeah, I'd say join a team too, but
Sweet.
Yeah, it's different.
How'd you find them?
They found me. Yeah, so the week after Thanksgiving, the Zooms opened back up, and they got a daily dial in the morning, and then they got this nightly dial at night.
Sean Dial.
Yeah.
They subscribed to the Sean Dials.
Yeah. And I popped on the both, of course, but I was in the nightly dial. I think it was a Monday night, which was the Bash Bros, and they were just like, I popped in, I hadn't seen this before, so I was like, what do you do here? I just see people like raising their hand on Zoom, and there's like 300 people in there. And I'm like, okay, I'll raise my hand too. And then they're like, Sean Daley, come on down. And they shoot me a DM for like a name and a number. And I'm like, what do I do? Who am I calling? What is happening here? And they're like, yeah, just give them a call. I'm like, is there any particular, just give them a call. Okay, cool, let's do it. So then I hop on and I just go for it and try to have a conversation.
But what was like, do what? Like,
yeah,
cold call?
It was a cold call. It was a cold call deal.
And you didn't know that you were going into that?
I kind of had an idea, because like while I'm in there, I see other people trying to do it, and when people like, I don't know, but when I get somebody on the phone, I can just, I don't know if it's just like the rapport. It's like, hey Brandon, how are you? And they're like, good, how are you? And then you just kind of build so it was like an opener and like kind of get things going, and nothing came of the call, but it was like, okay, what's next? You guys got another one. And anyways, Luciano was in there, and he's the visionary of the team, and he DM'd me, I think either that night or the next day, and he was like, hey dude, I saw you in the nightly dial and I'm starting a team, and I just really want you on it. You down for like just a little meet or whatever? And I'm like, what is this? Who's this guy just reaching out to me, And I'm like, is this what happens in this place? Like, what is up to really? Because I'm so new, and this is my first like basically day getting it going. And yeah, I was hesitant, but then we met up and we started going, and I was like, okay. After doing the course and seeing like what all it takes, like the capital from like all the different sources, like paying for the leads, getting the right system, doing a CRM, like having an integrator, and like all that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, that's just too much for me. I'm too ADHD, and I will be like looking at all the wrong places. So I decided to joined the team, and then it was just basically him like, here, call this person, call this person, call this person, and it was just going from there. And let me tell you, some of those calls in the beginning were just awful.
Gotta love it.
So when you made that first call, was that your
Very first call ever?
Like,
Yeah.
and what was your knowledge in like
Absolutely
real
nothing.
estate at all? Like, did you even know how to go? Like,
No,
like,
I just said, I think I heard somebody before had said, hey, like, a colleague of mine dropped this off on my desk just to give, and so I just did that. And then, like, yeah, just winged it. And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure who it was. It's kind of hard to read their handwriting sometimes. You know how that goes.
This knucklehead.
Perfect.
And then it just kind of went into it. And yeah, it didn't turn out to be anything.
But was it a direct to seller or
direct to seller? Yeah.
That's awesome. Because like when I started it, like I watched like a bunch of videos, so I knew a couple like pickup lines, so I'll like use this and that. But obviously, like you're nervous and stuttering and doing all that shit.
Oh yeah.
But when you're like, yeah, I don't know anything, like, and you're like hop on a call, that's like
1,000%.
Oh yeah.
That's
all the nerves. I was hyped up. I mean, there's 300 people in the Zoom, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like all this stuff. But it was cool. What honestly is something that stood out to me is there was actually a couple other people that were in that Zoom at that time that I saw raising their hand that I see today doing some really cool things in different markets.
Nice.
And so it's like, hey, I remember your first call, like to like Mike Key out of Idaho, right? He had this like sexy late night like radio host voice, and it was really funny. Like I don't like to when you be there and just like hearing his tonality, but like he's really progressed and got things going. But it's like just such a fun like time, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of those like recordings, from like back 2020 or so, and like I've seen some people and then Pace doing like their calls, and then like I just saw another video the other day, like the same person, like 2022, like still doing the same thing, and then like you see the difference. I was like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah. Because I think like back in the day, like they actually got a lot more personalized experience with Pace back in 2020. So it's like they had a lot more room to grow and foster and stuff like that. But yeah, now we're kind of like not really left to our own devices, but a lot more of it is community interactions for sure.
It is. I mean, now they're just trying to travel around and kind of go see people, but they still get a little FaceTime with Pace, and like it's cool. Like it's like,
no,
here he is. It's like, I don't know. It was crazy. I mean, I met him for the first time just a couple months ago, right? And didn't even know what to say. You know what I mean? Like I knew I was going to, and then I don't know, froze. Hey, nice to meet you. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, but it's like, if you get that opportunity back, it's like, hey, like I am just appreciative of the opportunity. The thing that I appreciate most about Pace is his storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's a really, really good storyteller, and he is an active listener. And so, like, all of those kind of details really lay it out for him when he's talking to a seller, right? And so there's a huge difference, like with tonality and things like that. And yeah, it's really cool to be able to kind of try to mimic that, in certain aspects.
And that's what, like, I really appreciate listening to his calls, because the thing that I take away is how he could actually adapt and mimic the seller so fast in the conversation. And I've been listening to some of his calls, and he'll get really direct with somebody to the point where you think this person's going to hang up. And a little part of me inside says, I hope he gets hung up on, because this will be the first time. And then all of a sudden, like, the flip is switched, and then the seller's just super nice. And it's like, how did you just build rapport after just essentially being an asshole? Like, how did you do this? He's like, you just got to find out who that person is and how they gain respect.
Yeah.
You keep pushing that line, and once you realize that you can't get bulldozed over, then it's like, okay, now I'm your friend.
Yeah.
But how did you figure that out so fast? Yeah. That's like those little subtle cues. Like, how do you get that? But, yeah.
So how long did it take you to get your first deal? Like, how was that process of, like, cold calling and then, like, getting better and then, okay, now, like, I'm close to my first deal and then nailing that? Like, how did that go?
I wish I could remember how long it was, but I feel like it was in the 2 month range that I got my first one. But it was a whirlwind of a deal. It was a hybrid scenario. Let's just say it was like a purchase price of like $475. So with seller was moving out of the country, and they liked the idea because where they were moving to, the dollar can go a lot further. So they're like, oh yeah, we can just take payments over time. This would be great. It's like a little, allowance for us. This is awesome. And so they were open to it, but they didn't want to leave the country and not understand it in case something were to happen. So they wanted to see it in action. So they wanted to do a leaseback option. So we did a leaseback for them for 3 months. It was a hybrid. It had solar on there.
What's a hybrid?
A
so
hybrid.
So people understand.
Yeah, no, great. I'm glad you asked that. So when you're purchasing a property it's subject to the existing mortgage that's already there. So basically you're just taking over the payments and continuing on. When you're doing like a seller finance deal, it's where the property is paid off free and clear. There's no other liens or anything or mortgages on the property. And you basically just turn the seller into the bank. And so you're making seller finance payments to them. A hybrid is a mixture of the two where they have an existing loan in place and that they also have a lot of equity in place. So it was kind of like it was an interesting one. I can't remember exactly how much they had left, but it was enough for these payments to kind of go through in at least a 15-year balloon. So, yeah.
And that was a direct to seller?
Direct to seller, had a lot of conversations with them. Really just a learning experience for me. I remember when they said yes, I was like, what do I do now? Right? Because I hadn't seen the contracts, you know what I mean? I hadn't been able to kind of get things going. So it was just like, okay, what do I do? Like that's the next steps. And then it's like all these crazy things. And then it's like, oh, this one has solar. We got to figure that out too. And
them solar liens.
Right?
Yeah. It's always like the crux of everything.
And then, dealing with the buyer as well. They're like, I don't want the solar. Well, then I don't know what to say. But yeah, it was a long back and forth deal, but it was just, I'm just wide eyed and like, what's happening? You know, like, this is so cool. Like, how do you get basically a $500,000 house with $19,000 down?
And then what happened? So they said yes, and then what? Like, what'd you do?
Well, what we did, we got it under contract. We went through the whole process, and then we ended up wholesaling the property. So,
but were you able to kind of follow that process of like
a little bit, right? I gotta say, without saying too much, buyer was really difficult person to work with, and so Luciano handled that, and he was about ready to pull out his own hair with this person. So, yeah, it was just a tough one, but it got to the finish line, right? And that was kind of the thing. It was like, okay, this is crazy. And now we're looking back at it being like, God, I wish we would have just kept that deal. To me, it was really exciting because I was like, oh, I'm going to get a nice check from this. This is cool. And then, kind of just, that's kind of where I was at. I was like, oh, it's been 2 months and I haven't seen a check.
Right.
Well, this is also after a year of not having a check. So it's like,
you're just trying to get anything that you could.
I was like, yeah, I really wish I would have started my process earlier on, but at the same time,
yeah.
But at the same time, like,
when's the best time to plant a tree, right?
Yeah, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So where was that deal at?
It's in Phoenix.
And how much you made, bro?
Man, I wish I could remember exactly how much I made on that one. Wasn't crazy. Obviously, I was still learning, and so I was still like a lead management / closer, but so my compensation wasn't up very high at the point. But then after that,
yeah. So, but you got a compensation, but then you guys all say at what, like 10, 15?
Yeah, maybe right around there.
Okay.
So what made that deal so attractive? Why do you say, looking back, that you should have kept it?
I'm glad you brought that up. Well, just because just thinking about looking at the property, it was cash flowing. It was a good deal. It was just I wish we just had the capital just to be able to get in there and do it that way. That would have been. It's always great to have properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I was really wanting to do. It's one being in San Diego. What's the median value right now over $1 million, right?
Yeah.
1,025,000, something like that. I think they just did. But that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, the trajectory that I was on before, there's no way I was going to be able to, like, afford a place here. You know? So, looking at other places and be able to build, like, generational wealth, and have free time, you know, being able to make money while I sleep, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can do that and have rental properties that are cash flowing and doing that, you're doing good.
And it's crazy because, I mean, a lot of us have similar goals, but I definitely want to touch on your specific one a little bit later. But it's awesome to think, like, once you figure out creative financing, that the door's kind of open to you. And it's like, oh, snap, I could actually get all these properties. And it's like, sometimes you don't even need money out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
You use other strategies. Like, some people can JV with you, or you use private money lenders or whatever, or hard money lenders in some cases. And it's like, you know, the cash flow is good enough. You can just, like, go ahead and pay them back, or, like, refi the equity out and then give it back to them. And then now you still have, like, an asset in your name.
And a lot of that comes down to your negotiation tactics.
Exactly.
And your explanation of how it should work. Like, you know, here's an opportunity for you to be able to get, you know, market value for your property or even higher. Because right now, with the rates being so high, people are not buying. And so it's like, people aren't selling. They've been on the market for a long time, you know, or whatever the case may be. So if you're able to offer them creative financing of some shape or form, then you can get to that number. But the numbers just have to make sense for us, you know? And that's the big thing. Some people would want a huge down payment if they have a lot of equity, and it's like, okay, I can see why you'd want that, you know? But at the same time, typically when we're putting a lot of capital into a property, we're going to be refinancing it out to pull that money back out and put it into new property. But the reason why we're actually attracted to this deal is because of that low interest rate that you currently already have. So we're not going to be refinancing. So therefore, it would just kind of kill the deal for us.
Yeah, that's what Pace says, right? So it's kind of like the phrase, no pain, no gain. So subject to pain, right? Seller finance, gain. But then you got to be able to structure the deal, right? Because they definitely want the gain, like the sellers you had, right? They wanted to move out and they wanted to cash out. And you're like, yeah, we can give you that price as long as you also get a piece of the cake.
Yeah.
So how are we going to, you know, structure that? Obviously, you know, comes in play as far as the cash flow, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there's always a way. So if the sellers have the motivation, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it just comes down to your underwriting and doing your due diligence on the neighborhood, the property, and seeing what's going on. You know, what are the rent rates in the area? You know, first and foremost, you're going to underwrite it as a long-term rental, and then make sure it works for that. And that way, anything above that, so midterm rates or short-term rates, that's a bonus. But as we've seen, you know, they put in restrictions on short-term rentals in different markets. San Diego, you know, there's a cap limit for how many you can have.
Thank you, Governor.
So you
and the city.
Yeah. So being able to long-term rent, obviously, if it works with that, that's awesome. That's what we want. Anything else is a bonus.
Yeah. So is that why, like, are you focusing only in Phoenix, or, like, what are your markets? Like, what are you looking at?
No, I'm all over. So I'd say our biggest markets, we have probably 5 big ones. So Arizona, Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas, North and South. Those are probably the big ones. But we're actually not using any dollar spend to get leads. We are JVing on pretty much everything for that. So direct to agent side, you know, that's easy. You just go on the MLS and just go snipe down some deals.
Have you done any like direct to agent in Arizona, like in the, let's say, like in the past weeks, like how is that looking, like, you know, having like all those, like, you know, heavy hitters in Arizona, like hammering the agents, and then some of the agents there actually know, you know, a lot about it.
Yeah.
So like it's a little different than calling different states and like, oh, what are you talking about, you know? And then like, have you had any of those? Like, I feel like a lot of hesitant
agents is kind of just like, hey, if you had $1 for every time someone pitched a sub 2 on this property today, how rich would you be? And then like, I would have gotten my my commission paid 3 times already, that kind of a thing. But I'm actually not doing a lot of the DTA stuff. I have guys that are doing DTA, like lead management wise, and then they'll bring me in if they need help with the close. So if they want to like talk a little bit more about what this looks like and that kind of stuff, then they'll bring it to me, and I can either talk to the agent, sometimes the broker, and even I've gotten pulled in with an attorney before too at the same time. So it's like agent, broker, and attorney.
How did that look like?
Well, that was a wild one. I was actually on a Zoom at the same time, and so the guys were like, "Let's go!" And I'm like,
you're like,
I was talking to the agent, the broker at first, and then somebody else chimed in. It was like a 3-way call, it turned into a 4-way thing, and we were all just kind of chatting, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late," and he was just super cool, mellow guy, and I was like, "I don't know who he is." They were asking about something, and I was like, well, I'm not an attorney, so like, I can't give you advice on this. This is kind of what like it should be the parameters, but do your own due diligence, right? And then the guy was like, "Actually, I'm an attorney, and what he's saying is actually right." And I was like, "Oh, so you're an attorney? Okay, great."
So it was actually a real estate attorney.
Yeah, and
okay, cool.
and he has guys on title company too, and so he's actually familiar with this. And so it went from a red agent to like, no, not a chance. Broker's not having it either. To those 3 like connecting to end up going forward with it.
Nice.
So yeah, and it was a cool little introduction. I was like, "What's the name of your title company?"
Cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
good. It was just a JV deal too, and so it was like I think it was a Pennsylvania deal, and yeah, it was interesting. So yeah. But I just remember feeling after that call like, holy crap, did I just talk with an attorney, a broker, and an agent about this, and everybody was on board? I feel like I just made
You're
it.
the man.
Yeah.
You're the man.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I felt really good, because like just getting going, that was months ago, right? So maybe 6 months into it, and it's like, holy crap, like really just grinding. Really
it's funny. Like, I mean, I haven't been doing for too long either, a little less than you, but it's funny, like. And not that I have the limitation not being from here or anything, but like you feel like a little hesitant, in certain ways, or sometimes you just forget what you're gonna say, or at least in my case. But it's not a limitation for me. But I've called agents before, and then like they'll be like no, but then like I would always find a way to kind of open up a little more, and they'll be like, dude, I had like 10, 20 calls, and you're actually the one that was actually able to explain like properly the whole pitch. And I'm like, oh shit, like actually maybe I'm getting good at this, or maybe just having a good call.
Repetition.
But it's interesting, right? Because like sometimes you even don't believe in yourself, but then you actually, because you've been doing it, like you're like, oh no, that's actually not true. So
yeah. It's satisfying just to like turn a red agent into like a yellow, or sometimes even a green one. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not interested in this. And it's like, first of all, it's annoying because it's like, that they're the roadblock between you and a deal. It's like, because like sometimes the seller would probably be open to it, but it's just the agent that is just getting in the way of things.
That's when you ask them, you're not interested or your seller's not interested.
Exactly, right? And it's like, they tell you, it's like, oh yeah, because this, and this. And it's like, okay, let me break it down for you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then they like still try to be macho about it. It's like, well, what about this, and this? And you like dispute that objection. It's like, okay, well, what about this? And you dispute it, and it's like, oh, I think I understand now. And it's like,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, it's like I've seen Pace calling this guy one time, and then the guy was like, oh no, I'm not interested in sub 2. I have like too much money. And then Pace was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm always looking for private money lenders. Yeah. And then he went from there, right? Like, so it's like you always find a way of like, going over and.
Yeah, it's like building those relationships. It's awesome because it's like the same thing with buyers or sellers too. Like I'll talk to some sellers, and it's like, okay, I'm not interested in selling my home. It's like, okay, awesome. Like, is there anything else that you're probably trying to do that I could probably help with? It's like, I'm actually in the business of buying. It's like, great. And now I have another buyer.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just build that relationship. And it's like, okay, cool. If I find a property that fits your buy box, let's do business together. It's like, I'm all about it. And it's like, you turn that red into a green again.
At this point of, like where you at as far as like, doing real estate, have you ever been able to actually buy a home with creative finance and then use the seller as your private money for your next deal?
Have I?
Yeah.
No, I have not, but I recently heard about doing that, and I was like, why did it take me this long to realize that? And they're getting ridiculous rates on it, too. It's like, because most people are just like keeping their stuff in the old bank account, getting like 2%, 3%, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, cool, I mean, yeah, it's not for me. Most of the time when I do it, I get like, I'm doing real estate transactions, I'm getting like 6 to 9%. And they're like, wait, what? And then they're like, oh, half the time and doing this sounds great. That's crazy. So it's on the agenda. So I've got a couple of deals in the mix right now that I'm working with somebody that I actually got 2 of their properties under contract in the last week. Both were hybrid deals, one in Phoenix and one in Mesa. And she was like, I just think this is so interesting. I really want to learn how you do this and how you structure it. Because, like, you know, obviously she's investing herself and has a few other properties. She really wanted to kind of get into it. So she was like, all right, we'll do this, but you got to teach me how and that kind of thing.
Man,
so
you got to get me some of these deals in Mesa,
Yeah.
Arizona. I want to get into that area.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, I mean, another fun fact is I've actually never taken anything down personally. So I don't have anything in my own portfolio, right? So, like, within the last week, I'm just really trying to get out there and, like, setting intentions. Like, my goal that I set in July was I wanted to have 6 stores by the end of the year. And I felt like maybe that was aggressive, maybe it's not, you know, I don't know. But at the same time, like, from nothing to that, I felt like that was a pretty big deal, right? And, you know, right now there's 2 deals that I'm looking at. I've already got someone that wants to partner with me on one in Texas. We'll see how that one goes. We still need to get inside, but from what we're being told and seen, it looks like it'll be a pretty good one. And then that Mesa duplex was a JV deal. So still waiting to see if the JV partner will let me get this one, but it sounds like there's a possibility. So, you know, real estate, you never get your hopes up and you don't count your chickens till they hatch. But just it's the foundation of it, right? And it comes down to having a plan, and when you get the green light, being able to pull the trigger, right? So just like after I got them to say yes on that first contract, okay, great, what do I do now, right? It's that same kind of feeling, you know, like, okay, so how do I get this? And how do I structure this in a way where it's none of my own money at the same time? So we're going to be raising some capital for one of the properties, and it'll be a great learning experience. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I'd love to we'll probably love to like hear you out on that journey and just like get some knowledge from that too. Yeah, I'm super stoked. I'm like, okay, cool. So like just doing a bunch of things that I haven't done before just means you're getting that much better. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, you have a lot more tools in the tool belt. 1000%. So then what is your overall goal? So like you didn't want to be an agent, like obviously you left hospitality. So it's like, where do you see yourself like 10 years from now? So, I mean, in 10 years from now, I mean, that's in the next few years, I want to keep growing more and more properties each year. So say if I get 6 this year, maybe next year I'll have 12. And this is wholesaling, or are you talking about buy and hold? Buy and hold. Nice. I ultimately want to get into multifamily. Okay. So I want to figure out how syndications work. I want to get around that. I know a lot of people are doing some like boutique hotels and stuff. With the hospitality background, it's always like in that back pocket. Like I've always wanted to open up like a bar restaurant style place on like Lake Tahoe. Ooh. Right? Just because I just like the vibe, set up a spot where I'm going to go hang out, and I just want to have that. So if I can get into the commercial side of real estate as well, be able to find the spot, and then Dan Sullivan says it best, who not how, so I don't get sucked back into that life, but put the right people in the right place to operate and run the restaurant. Like that's a goal, because I always wanted to own my own, but not necessarily know I wanted to run it. Right? I would like for it to be able to operate without me getting those 4 a.m. phone calls. Yeah, exactly. You know? Oh, not operating. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Cool. Exactly. So, I would love for that to happen in the next 10 years.
Shit.
You know?
Did you know I was a chef?
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
So you better train your GM very well because it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, I'm not shitting in your dream. You know, it's something you want to do. It's possible.
I mean, people do it.
But yeah, it's just a lot of work. And
Well, it's a lot of work, but you gotta put the right people in the right place.
oh yeah, put the right people. Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
So just dealing with people is always the hardest part. Like, I mean, cold calling, that's hard. Like, you're dealing with that. But then, like, once you're not owning, but like when you're employing other people, right? Like, that's another ball game, right? Because like people want to take off work or they just like get lazy with it. So then it's like, how do you find new talent? How do you keep that talent? How do you make sure that everybody's cooperating together? Yeah, it's a whole nother deal. But I mean, like once you get to that level, I mean, yeah, that's good problems to have, right? That means you made it. That means you made it to the next step where you can actually deal with something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having the time, right? So on like a personal side, I will be having like a family, right? So I don't want him to be so consumed with work. I think Pace set's a really good example, right, for what he's doing and how he handles his day to day with his whole family, whether he be going to a house with his kids at the same time. It's just like a real personable situation. So, yeah.
Cool.
That would be cool.
Speaking of raising capital,
yeah.
Are you able to share how you guys are doing that, or?
I mean, that is yet to be seen, right? So that this conversation happened earlier today about just getting things going. So I've talked to a couple people that have been doing it in the past, but really it's just like building the relationships and seeing what we can do. So I'll have to get back to you on that whole process because I'm still learning myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna watch this video 5 years later. He's gonna be like freaking multi-million-dollar syndicator.
Heck yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
Deals.
Well, I kind of see myself somewhat as a connector, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love going to meetups. Like it's almost being addicted to going to meetups and just meeting people because then it's like, hey, you should meet so and so should meet so and so. And then the next time I see them, they're together and they're doing deals together. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that worked out.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes me happy, right? And so. Yeah, it's really neat. Like I love going to different events and seeing the same familiar faces. I'm like, you're a hustler. I love it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. No, I'm personally starting to kind of be out there more, and I know a lot of people actually now. And yesterday I went with one of my partners, and he's like, "Oh, everyone here." I'm like, "No, but like I know a good chunk of people, but I'm also showing up." But it's interesting because I learned one thing. I'm like. I feel so sleepy during the mastermind. I feel so sleepy, bro. Like I don't want to talk. I just want to take a nap. So like next time I'm gonna take a Red Bull or something because I gotta be active and talking. But at the end, I was actually able to make some really good connections. Yeah. So like I got a bunch of phone numbers and like connect with a bunch of people and shout out to Mike, Blair, and LJ because that event was amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. Top notch. Unlock Your Potential was
free
amazing.
Event. Game changer, bro. Like now for us to run our own thing, it's just like we're gonna have to do something very good because they set the bar. Yeah, I talked to them this morning and they're like, very stoked. So
yeah, I actually met somebody at that event who he's an agent for auto real estate, which I didn't even know what that was.
Mobile homes?
No, so like car washes.
Anything mobile really. So car wash.
Car washes are good money
so
maker,
like
right?
smog, like businesses, like all
too.
kinds of weird, not weird, but like all kind of interesting things.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's weird, but
gas stations was another one.
Gas station. Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know you could be like a specific agent for that. I was like, I'm definitely keeping your number in my back pocket. I don't know when I'm going to use you, but I know it's going to happen one day where I'm going to get something obscure, like an obscure seller, and be like, yeah, well, I have this gas station. Like, do you want to buy that?
Carl?
Yeah. Got you.
Yeah.
But that's like, the importance of having a good, strong buyer's list, right? Because you never know who you're going to call. Mm-hmm. And you never know, like, what situation they could be in. Like, they could have a bunch of land. If you have a bunch of land buyers, boom, that's a deal for you. Mm-hmm. They have a random car wash, boom, that's a deal for you. We talked about this earlier. Like, they may have a house that may not even be cash flowing. That could be a deal in and of itself just because somebody has so many properties or so much income that they need to acquire that house for tax depreciation purposes.
Yeah, 1,000%.
So
what's the alternative to that?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, if you don't have those people, what's the alternative? It just becomes a dead lead.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're sharpening your axe in between each freaking whack and just getting things going, it's like, cool. That's why I like going to meetups, right? Because it's like learning new things. Like sub 2 on VAs, we can have a whole podcast on that, that's for sure.
Oh Lord.
But I remember like just meeting somebody who is now my VA specialist at one of the meetups, and anytime I'm doing a VA sub 2, I shoot him that way because he is the man when it comes down to it, and then he gets a referral, and he gets to help them out with their new loan and all this stuff.
What are some of the like issues you've been through with that you had you had to have like help or anything like that with like that referral, like as far as like a VA?
So a lot of that just comes down to entitlement questions, because that's really just coming down to entitlement can vary depending upon county, right? And how far they're going and what's the reason for them moving, and so many different things that, like, if they're in a higher market like California and they're going into a little place in Mississippi, they're not really going to have entitlement because they're already used to the big one. But they do the opposite, and they might have a little bit left over to come into California.
Yeah.
So there's so many different variables, right? And you've really got to have an understanding of what's going on, what's got you moving. You know, see, it's a VA loan. Like, are you active military? Are you moving for the military? That you got orders? Like, yeah, that's what we're heading out doing here. Okay, cool. What's your plan? Are you guys going to be renting over there? Are you guys going to buy a new one? And they're like, oh, we're thinking about buying one over there. Okay, great. And then you have that conversation, right? Mm-hmm. That just continues on. And then it's like, the reason why I was asking those questions was because of this. And then you can be proactive rather than be reactive.
Yeah. It's crazy because I'm a veteran myself, and I just know I talk to a lot of military members who have used their VA loan or used the VA loan and don't even know that they could actually use it a second time.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, like, how many people don't know that, but, like, at the same time, even if they do know that, they still don't know how much entitlements are left.
Mm.
You know, it's definitely a requirement to, like, educate these veterans to say, hey, you could still achieve exactly what you want, but you just need to give them, like, the knowledge and the tools to do so. And then it's like their world kind of expands. It's like, okay, this is perfect because I didn't want to refinance out of this one or sell this property because this is either cash flowing or it's in a good area where I want to come back to, or whatever reason it is. But to give them that option to actually go forward and buy another house using the VA loan is
that's amazing. The thing about real estate, you're always learning something new. You know?
Oh yeah.
Like, I've had calls that the agent was like, oh no, it's a VA loan, they can get another loan. And then I didn't know shit about it, so I'm like, okay, bye.
Guess you're right.
You know, and then next call, I found out, like, oh yeah, you can get up to, like, I don't know, like, how many, but, like, I knew a guy who got, like, up to 4 loans, and I'm like...
That's impressive.
Like, and then I was just thinking about the lead that I missed, right? And I'm like, I missed this lead because I didn't know the agent was clueless either, so I was like, man, I gotta get my shit together. But at the same time, you know, it's a learning experience, so it's always good. So as far as, like, markets for, like, the homes you're looking to buy, like, what's your goal? Like, do you have anything in mind, or...
cash flowing properties
anywhere,
right?
Red states.
It's I think I'm gonna stay out of California for those ones, unless, like, if it was a California deal, depending upon what it was, like, I would like to get something for myself, right? Because those don't really come by very often. People are finding them, but it's just not as often. So if I were to come across something like that, I would figure out a way how I could keep it myself. Because California's going to really appreciate that kind of a thing too. So
yeah, we're going to definitely have, like, a dichotomy of the have and the have-nots. And it's not just like the current, you don't have a house. It's like you cannot afford a house at all anymore because, like, just the income that people are getting versus, like, the way houses are appreciating. Like, that opportunity to get a house is shrinking.
Well, San Diego in particular, right?
Exactly.
It's such a tourist spot, and you can't really go up any more north. You know, you can't really go south.
You're actually truly bounded because I'm actually going to school for this. But, like, you can't go west because it's Pacific. Can't go north because you have the military base, Camp Pendleton. Can't go south, obviously, that's Mexico. But then you also have, like, these reservations that are to the east, which really does bind San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
So the solution to that usually is just building up.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really do that because there's a lot of permitting issues and like zoning regulations that are preventing it from doing so. But we do have like the ADUs that could allow for those potentials.
Or you can move to the hood.
That is always an option.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of cool places about San Diego, right? We have so many awesome little, like, not suburbs, but like little pockets to kind of choose from. So yeah, it's awesome. But ultimately, like, if more long term, so short play, like what I'm looking for right now is just to get cash flow on properties and be able to have them get the ball rolling, and then be able to roll that into something else. So whether or not I keep that or use equity from one of the deals or something like that to get into another property somewhere else. Ultimately, like, I love living in places where it's like a tourist spot, right? So like having properties like that where people will want to travel to, that's a big goal of mine, right? Love to get a property in Hawaii, you know. So yeah, it'd be great, but yeah, it's just neat. So touristy spots.
We should definitely do a deal together and actually keep the property, bro.
I'm thinking that we should use his VA loan. The entire time he was talking about that, I was like, "Oh, we should definitely use
Come
it."
in,
Yeah.
We'll put the money.
The quadplex.
I'll find the money for you, bro.
I gotta
exactly.
refinance out of it so we could get something bigger. But yeah, that thing's sitting on 3.75%, and I'm like, oh, you just gotta wait for it.
Because he's done it already. He bought one, and then
Yeah, I still have a little bit of entitlements left. I just don't know how much.
I got a guy for that.
Yeah.
So.
I got the money.
Everybody's got money. So cool. Like,
but entitlement is just more for the down payment, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
I
like,
mean, if you could raise the money but still have that cheap interest rate, LETSGO.
yeah,
Let's
exactly.
go.
Exclamation point.
Okay, so like let me get a little schooled here. So let's say I have a friend who's in the military.
You do.
But don't you have to live in the home if you're buying the home?
It's
like,
the intent to live in the home, right? It's having the intention to live there. So you're really planning on moving there and you want to get in there and do something, but then things happen, right? Maybe if they are active duty, they get pulled away and deployed someplace else, and so they had to relocate. So they can still keep that property there and get more at the new spot.
Yeah. So it's not to suggest like mortgage fraud, but like sometimes, yeah, like Sean was talking about, yeah, you do get deployed, or sometimes something happens and you get PCS, so it's a permanent change of station somewhere else. But you are supposed to live there for at least a year as your primary place of residence.
Mm-hmm.
But something can legally force you to move away, and then you can just turn that into a rental, even though you lived there for like not even lived there, but.
You bought it, you got a W-2 job, and they want you to move to another state.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, oh, I'm just going to keep that one there. Or you have an accident, and you're like, I can't hit the stairs in this house, so I'm just going to get something else.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things. But yeah, I think the verbiage in it just says the intent to live there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Cool. So you got a VA? Come talk to me.
Yeah.
Cool. So what advice would you give to anybody who's like just starting out?
Collaborate. A little collaboration never hurt anybody. You know?
Collaboration.
Yeah. But really it is. It's just it's getting a seat at the table. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Figure out who's doing what and how, and then surround yourself with those people. Right? Typically when you're starting something new, you're leaving something else behind. Right? So, you know, if you're trying to really better yourself in real estate and gain a lot of knowledge, don't hang out so much with the people that are not in the real estate game that might be taking your attention elsewhere. Like if you're really going in for something, go all in. Go silent for a couple months. You know, just put your head down and grind. Do your thing. Come out on the other side and people are like, what happened to you? Where'd you come from? You know? You're like, oh yeah, I just picked up a couple properties, did this and that. You know, it's cool. You know? So take a break. But collaborate. That's the biggest thing. Join a team. Get around people that are doing stuff. Learn from them. I mean, you are the sum of the 5 people closest to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it.
So would you recommend, like, how would you recommend them getting out there? Like real estate meetups or like YouTube University?
I mean, all of the above, right? So I think my biggest thing was I just went on the Meetup app, and I actually did that before I ever joined Sub 2. I did that while I was just exploring the idea of maybe getting into real estate. I knew one thing's for sure. I loved playing the game of Zillow hunting and Redfin hunting and just like looking. I'm like, oh, that's a deal. Oh, that's a deal. You know, because I got them sent to my email every morning anyways. It was like, oh, you guys see? No one cares. You know what I mean? And I was like, I love this game. Like, I love just, looking at properties late at night and seeing what kind of deals are out there. And like, that one's going to go in like 2 weeks, guaranteed. Just that kind of a thing. So I was like, what do I want to do in real estate and how do I want to do it? Because I don't see the longevity and I don't see the monetary value necessarily as a real estate agent for what I felt like my capacity as a real estate agent could handle. Right? It's like, what am I going to give up? You see like Selling Sunset or whatever those TV shows for the agents. And you're like, how much that's real, how much that's fake, like
how often does it happen?
Exactly, right?
It's all fake, bro.
Yeah. So it's like those kind of things, right? And like, I got a friend who's a broker, and like he was obviously a real estate agent beforehand, and seeing how he was doing stuff, and like it's grind, and then really just got to market yourself and do things like that. But
it's interesting that you brought up was like, oh, that nobody cares, right? But it's funny because you also said that you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around. And then sometimes you just don't have that opportunity to hang out with real estate investors or entrepreneurs or anybody that's business mindset. So it's like you have to find that external source. So going to Meetup, the app Meetup, or going to meetups or whatever it is, just getting surrounded by people who talk the talk and walk the walk of what you're aspiring to be like, so that you're surrounding yourself with those types of people, even though it is virtually. That is something that's definitely going to help you out, is just being in that environment, even though it may not be your physical environment.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. So, my favorite thing about real estate is that there's so many more avenues than I ever could have imagined that people can get into. Maybe they don't want to like deal with talking with sellers or agents or whatever, anything like that, but they have some money in the bank just chilling. Come on in, be my private money lender.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And,
shameless plug.
Yeah. And, because like there's other people that are really good at other aspects, right? And so to me, I'm really good like chess brain. Like I'm always trying to put the puzzles pieces together and like just thinking, 5 steps ahead. And how could this work? Right? So I can find the deals, I can structure the deals, and then it just comes down to like how I make this work where private money will get their return, and I can get into a property with $0 down, right? So it's like just figuring out how to do that and how to collaborate and work as a team. So yeah, everybody's got their own skill set. Maybe they might not think it's a skill set, but everybody's got their own skill set.
Yeah.
Right. So
cool.
Find out what you're good at.
So where can people find you, and what's the best way to reach out?
You can find me at The Right Buyer on Instagram and YouTube, which I don't ever use, but I got that. So yeah, probably have to get something going for those and kind of get that going. I thank you guys for like setting this up. It really does put a little fuel in the fire for getting more active on social media.
Yeah. It is a grind. Social media is a grind, but it definitely pays off.
Yeah. So, yep, find me there. And then, maybe after this, when you guys post this, I'll have a JV link that if you guys want to put on there too, you can always send deals through and kind of go that way, or even schedule a call. Calendly's on there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll have all that in the show notes below. So if you're listening on the podcast, definitely check out the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, definitely look at the description. We'll be able to guide you to Sean Daley.
Cool.
Daily deal.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, brother.
Awesome.
See you guys in the next episode.
Peace.